Now, the human genome varies, and as a result, human anatomical features and physiological processes vary as well. This is not unique to humans. Dogs vary. We can see this, by looking at dog breeds, examining them externally, or looking at their skulls. So the skull of a Great Dane would vary from that of a terrier. They differ in size, how well the skull is domed, the shape of the snout, whether the lower jaw protrudes in front of the upper jaw. Just casual examination reveals fairly significant differences among modern breeds of dog. I mean, they vary in size, for example, from the size of large rats to the size of small bears. Obviously, all of this change has occurred within a species, just as, once again, random mutations are isolated in specific populations. Now, over time, these changes which accumulate can lead to the formation of a new species. It was once argued that each species had existed since the dawn of history with life on Earth. Now, that position has changed in recent times, even among those who oppose evolution. Evolutionists would hold that the timber wolf was the ancestor of modern species, the modern species of dog, and that from ancestral dogs these modern variations arose. Charles Darwin argued for the origin of species, how a new species could arise through natural processes. Now, this was once quite the debate, and in the 1900s, the early portion of it, most of the evolution, the early 1900s, most of the debates on evolution versus creationism revolved around the fixity of species, whether a new species could evolve or not. But now even most of those who oppose evolution in their minds would agree that this species, the wolf, was the progenitor of the modern species of dog. The question then comes, are the other wild canins related? So are wolves related to coyotes, to red foxes, to gray foxes? Well, originally most creationists would have answered no. Today, most modern creationists feel that the moment of creation involved a kind, so the dog kind, and the ancestral dog kind would have given rise to all of these wild species of dogs. So the majority of modern creationists seem to be of the opinion that all these modern species of dog have descended from a common ancestor, but the dogs are not related to other species. But this raises some problems, because if we were to compare, say, a timber wolf and a black bear, for example, they look fairly similar. I mean, there are some differences in their teeth and their snouts, but for the most part, these are very similar skulls. Now, compare instead the timber wolf and a bulldog, or the black bear and the cave bear. We often see that these two very traditional forms, the black bear and the timber wolf, which have not changed that much, may be more similar to each other than either is to another member of their group. When I ask people to give me an opinion which of these three are most closely related, most people pick the wolf and the black bear rather than choose the cave bear, or pick the black bear and the wolf rather than include the dog, while these two bears are more closely related and the wolf and the dog are more closely related. So the problem for creationists then becomes, if some evolution is possible, how does one distinguish between the microevolution, which is the change within a, quote, kind, a group which is descended from a common ancestor, and then, quote, the macroevolution, which they reject? Because, for example, most modern creationists accept a cat kind. But if we were to consider, say, a domestic cat versus a tiger or a saber-toothed cat, the differences are enormous between these. But nevertheless, most modern creationists would lump them together in a cat kind, which shares a common ancestry. Okay, modern beavers have ancient relatives which were enormous, 10 feet long. The skulls are very similar in their overall proportions, but their sizes are different. Okay, we see this in other groups as well. Some of the old world monkeys are very different from each other. Say, this vervet monkey and this baboon, while a vervet monkey and a primitive ape, the gibbon, are very, very similar. Some creationists have offered their conclusion that all monkeys make up a kind. Well, if that's true, then modern creationists accept that these two share a common ancestor, even though they are more different from each other, in, at least in the skull appearance, than the monkey and the ape. Same thing with these New World monkeys. Some of these, are very different from each other. There are lemurs which are extremely different from each other. The bats which are extremely different from each other. And then applying this to humans, the question then becomes, if we were to line up a number of ape skulls and hominid skulls, where does humanity begin? For an evolutionist, it's a question of a gradual change. Somewhere in this lineage, humanity appeared through the accumulation of gradual changes. In the creationist model, however, some of these are apes, some of these are humans, and it is not possible to be partway in between because they do not share a common ancestor and humans have not evolved from any other species. All right. The problem then is, where do you draw the line between what is ape and what is human? These are modern ape species, and these are all fossil hominids before getting into modern humans. And when I've asked students who are creationists to draw the line where they feel humanity begins, they differ. Creationists which have published papers differ in their opinion. So some creationists will call one of these fully human, while another creationist may pick the same skull and say that it is fully ape. The problem, once again, with microevolution and macroevolution, if one feels that a chimp could never become human because the differences between them are just too great, we could say, take this female bonobo chimp, this Homo habilis, this Homo erectus, and then maybe a few other a Homo ergaster and a Homo heidelbergensis, and ask, where is the drastic change? Okay. These seem very similar. Now, virtually all creationists who have ever published, at least the ones that I've read, would definitely claim that all of these are fully human, and some would disagree on this one. This was one that modern creationists have not offered a firm conclusion on. But nevertheless, where is the distinct difference? Because if one is going to argue that this one, at least, is so fully ape that it could never become something like this, even if given millions of years, the differences between these skulls are minor compared to what we see between different breeds of dogs, or between the black bear and the cave bear, or between the domestic cat and the saber-toothed cat, or between baboons and other old world monkeys, or howler monkeys and marmosets. So the problem is, many of the groups which most people today, including most creationists, would feel share a common ancestor, actually vary by far more than what would be needed to transform an ancestral ape into a primitive hominid.